He didn't recognize him at first. A man in a crisp suit paused at the restaurant entrance, staring at a face he thought he'd never see again. And yet, something about that face pulled at a memory he could never fully forget. Rain pounded the streets outside the small diner, streaking across the glass in chaotic patterns lit by flickering neon. Inside, the scent of fried eggs, bacon, and strong coffee wrapped the room in a tired but comforting warmth. Mark Reynolds moved quickly between tables, balancing trays of cups and plates with practiced care. His threadbare apron and worn shoes told the story of years spent working without rest. His back ached constantly, but his smile never faltered when customers looked his way. It was the kind of smile built from survival, meant to hide exhaustion and keep the world at ease. Life had worn him down over the years, slowly dimming the dreams he once carried. Responsibilities and hardship had replaced ambition, leaving him to fight through each day. His daughter Lily was the only light that never faded. At 15, her laughter and small victories gave meaning to every sacrifice he made. Still, he often wondered if she deserved more than he could give. The diner door chimed sharply, breaking the rhythm of the room. Mark glanced up, wiping his hands, as a sleek black car came to a stop outside. A tall man stepped out, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit. Ethan Carter walked inside, scanning the room with quiet intensity. Mark steadied a tray as a child laughed over a messy table. A hotel lobby flashed in his mind: panic, a choking child, and a stranger who had stepped in without hesitation. That stranger was standing right in front of him now. Ethan's heart raced as recognition settled in. The man who had once saved his life was here, worn by time but unmistakable. Mark nearly dropped his tray before catching it in time. As he looked toward the entrance, his eyes met Ethan's, and everything seemed to stop. "Mark?" Ethan's voice cut softly through the noise. The single word carried years of memory and gratitude. Mark froze, the past rushing back all at once. "Ethan Carter?" he whispered, disbelief shaking his voice. Ethan nodded, emotion flickering behind his composed exterior. "I'm the boy you saved? I never forgot?" The diner faded into the background as the two stood in silence. Time seemed to fold, bringing past and present together in one fragile moment. "You were just a kid," Mark said, struggling to process it. "I didn't think it would matter that much." Ethan smiled gently, his voice steady. "It mattered more than anything. My whole life changed because of that night." Mark felt his chest tighten, overwhelmed by something he had never expected. A single act of kindness had echoed far beyond his understanding. Ethan leaned closer, lowering his voice. "I want to help you, Mark, not just for tonight, something real." Mark hesitated, unsure whether to trust what he was hearing. Promises had come and gone before, leaving nothing behind. Then Ethan showed him photos: Lily smiling, achieving, growing. Mark's breath caught as disbelief turned into something fragile and hopeful. "I've been watching, waiting," Ethan said quietly, "for the right moment to step in." Before Mark could respond, a loud disturbance broke the moment. A group of rowdy customers stumbled in, scattering noise and tension across the diner. Mark rushed to restore order, instinct guiding him as always. Ethan watched silently, his calm hiding a rising urgency. When Mark returned, everything felt different. The connection between them was no longer just memory, it was something real and immediate. "I can't believe this," Mark murmured, still shaken. "After all these years, I just waited for this moment." Mark's eyes filled with emotion he had long suppressed. "I didn't do it for thanks, I just did what felt right." Ethan placed a hand on his, firm and sincere. "And now it's my turn to be there for you." For a moment the world felt still, held together by gratitude and fate. The rain tapped softly against the windows like a quiet witness. Then the door burst open again, this time with purpose. Two men in dark suits entered, scanning the room with urgency. Their eyes locked onto Ethan instantly. The air shifted, tension cutting through the warmth of the diner. Ethan's expression hardened just slightly. "Stay close, Mark," he said under his breath. "We don't have much time." Mark's heart began to race as uncertainty crept in. This reunion was no coincidence, it was something far bigger. Looking at Ethan now, he saw not just the boy he had saved, but a man surrounded by danger and power. The question hung heavy between them, unspoken yet undeniable. Recognition had come, but it carried a cost neither of them could yet see. Outside, the rain intensified, echoing the rising tension inside. And as the night deepened, destiny waited just beyond the door. 20 years ago, a single act of kindness had unknowingly changed a life. Tonight, that debt was about to be repaid. The diner's warm light flickered against the dark, rainy street outside. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of coffee and fried food, but Mark barely noticed. His heart was still pounding, his thoughts spinning in a whirlwind of disbelief and nostalgia. Ethan Carter. The boy he had saved 20 years ago, the boy whose life he had unknowingly changed with a single act, stood a few feet away. Mark's mind kept flashing back to that night in the hotel lobby, a memory that had never truly faded. It had been a busy weekend at a bustling downtown hotel. A conference brought people from all over the country, organizing chairs, running errands, and keeping an eye on guests. That night, a small boy had wandered away from his mother, clutching a piece of candy. Distracted, frightened, and alone, he began to choke. Mark had acted without hesitation. Hands steady, heart racing, he performed the Heimlich maneuver, calming the boy while calling for help. Relief flooded the room as the boy's mother embraced him, tears streaming. Mark had shrugged it off, thinking it was just another day, another small act of kindness. And now, here he was, Ethan Carter, grown into a man who could buy and sell entire corporations, standing before him in a way that made the diner feel both impossibly small and monumental at the same time. Mark's throat tightened. "You grew up into this," his voice faltered. He gestured vaguely at Ethan's suit, his confident posture, his presence that could command rooms. Ethan smiled, a soft, almost nostalgic smile. "I never forgot you, Mark. Not for a day. That night, you didn't just save me. You saved my future." Mark shook his head, incredulous. It's just strange to see you like this. I never imagined. How could I? You were just a child." Ethan's eyes softened. "I know, and I was scared. But you, without thinking, without hesitation, you did what needed to be done, and it stayed with me. Every choice I've made, every step I've taken, it all traces back to that moment." Mark's mind raced. He had spent years thinking that small, invisible kindnesses disappeared into the void, unnoticed, unimportant. He had lived a life of struggle, barely scraping by, yet here was a man whose very existence had been shaped by him. And now he wanted to give back. Ethan leaned slightly closer, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Mark, I want to help you. I want to make sure you and your daughter have a future that's secure. A life you've earned, a life you deserve." Mark felt his chest tighten. Hope, cautious and trembling, began to take root. He had heard promises before, empty words from people who didn't understand his life, his struggle, his exhaustion, but there was something in Ethan's gaze, steady and unyielding, that made it different. Before he could respond, Ethan pulled out his phone and showed him a series of images. Mark's breath caught. There was Lily smiling at a school play, holding up an award she had won for her painting, waving at the camera with pride and joy. She had grown into a bright, talented girl, full of promise. And someone had noticed. Someone had been watching, supporting from a distance, silently caring. Mark's hands trembled as he lowered his gaze. How did you even? Ethan smiled. "I've been watching from afar. Making sure she's safe, making sure she has opportunities, noticing her growth. I want to be there, to help, to ensure the life you've worked so hard for is more than just surviving." Mark felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. His life had been nothing but struggle, endless shifts at diners and odd jobs. And here was the boy he had saved, now a man of unimaginable power, offering him more than he had dared to dream. But before Mark could fully process the depth of the moment, a sudden disturbance interrupted them. The diner door slammed open, letting in a gust of wind and rain. Two men in dark suits strode in, their expressions serious, scanning the room with precision. Mark's heart skipped a beat. Who were these men? And why did they look at Ethan as if they were expecting trouble? Ethan's demeanor shifted subtly. Calm, measured, but with an edge of urgency. He gestured toward a back corner of the diner. "Mark, stay close. We need to talk privately." Mark's mind spun. This wasn't just a reunion anymore. But even with fear creeping in, he nodded, following Ethan to a quieter corner. Once they were alone, Ethan explained, his voice low but intense. "I'm in danger, Mark. A hostile rival has discovered vulnerabilities in my company, things that could ruin me. And because of your connection tonight, you're now involved. I can't explain everything publicly, but you need to trust me. I know this is sudden and overwhelming, but we have to act carefully." Mark's mind raced. Danger? Him? How did this even connect to his life? Yet, something in Ethan's eyes, the same unwavering intensity that had saved his own life years ago, made him nod in silent agreement. Ethan continued. "I'm asking for your help, Mark. Not for business, not for greed. For your daughter, for your family. I need someone I can trust, and tonight." "That someone is you?" Mark's heart pounded. Fear, uncertainty, and a strange flicker of excitement coursed through him. But now he had a chance to step into something bigger, to be part of a story that mattered. The diner became a temporary command center, the clatter of dishes and hum of neon lights fading into the background. Mark realized something remarkable. He felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. The fear, the struggle, the endless grind, they hadn't disappeared, but they had transformed. This was no longer just survival. This was purpose. And yet, just as the night seemed manageable, a shadow passed over the diner window. A sleek black SUV had parked silently outside, its engine barely a whisper against the rain. Mark's stomach twisted. The threat wasn't coming, it was already here. Ethan noticed the movement too, his eyes narrowing. "They're here," he said quietly. "We need to move quickly." Mark felt his pulse spike. He looked at Ethan, a mix of awe and apprehension in his eyes. The man who had once been a frightened child, saved by his own hands, now stood as a protector, a strategist, and a force to be reckoned with. And Mark. He realized he had to rise to the occasion, too. The two men in suits from earlier were part of Ethan's team, but now the situation had escalated beyond anything Mark had anticipated. This was no longer just a reunion. It was a convergence of past, present, and danger, a moment where their lives, their choices, and their destinies collided. As Mark took a deep breath, preparing to follow Ethan into the unknown, he glanced once more at Lily, who had been quietly sitting in a booth with a friend. She was unaware of the magnitude of the night unfolding, yet her presence anchored him. For her, he would face anything. Ethan placed a steady hand on Mark's shoulder. "Whatever happens next, remember this. You saved me once. Tonight, we save each other." The rain intensified outside, the neon signs casting distorted reflections across the wet streets. The diner seemed suspended in a fragile bubble of tension and anticipation. Every choice from here on out would ripple through their lives, forever altering the course of their futures. Mark's heart raced. He knew there was no turning back. The moment of reunion had transformed into something larger, something urgent. And in the shadows outside, the storm, both literal and metaphorical, was waiting. As Mark and Ethan prepared to face the unknown, the SUV's engine hummed ominously. The night stretched into uncertainty, and the world seemed poised to test every ounce of courage, trust, and resilience they possessed. Would they survive the night, or would their reunion be torn apart before it even began? Reunions are never simple, especially when the past and present collide in ways neither of them could have imagined. The night outside the diner had deepened into an almost oppressive darkness, the rain falling in steady, relentless sheets that blurred the city lights into streaks of orange and white. Inside, the warmth of the diner did little to ease the tension that gripped Mark Reynolds. He could feel it coiling in his chest, a mixture of adrenaline, disbelief, and fear. He glanced at Ethan Carter, standing a few feet away, calm yet focused, every muscle taut with purpose. Mark had followed him to the back corner of the diner, where a small office space offered a temporary refuge from the prying eyes of the patrons and the shadows that loomed just outside. "Mark," Ethan said quietly, his voice a low rumble that carried both authority and reassurance. "I need you to trust me, right now, more than ever." "What's about to happen?" "It's bigger than either of us imagined." Mark swallowed hard. The words felt heavy in his chest. Bigger? Danger? He had survived his entire life through grit, perseverance, and small acts of courage. But this was different. He could feel it. Ethan continued, his tone measured but urgent. "Years ago, I made enemies I didn't fully understand. Some I thought were long gone, some I thought harmless. But a rival, someone I underestimated, has discovered weaknesses. Weaknesses that could destroy everything I've built. And you, by being here, by connecting with me tonight, you're now part of this. Mark's mind whirled. He had been a simple man, a single father, surviving one day at a time. Danger, rivalries, corporate intrigue, these were worlds he had never stepped into, worlds that existed in movies or news stories. And yet, here he was, standing shoulder to shoulder with the boy he had saved, now a man whose life had become impossibly complex. I don't know if I'm the right person for this, Mark admitted, voice trembling. I don't know anything about this kind of world. Ethan's gaze softened. You know more than you think? You've always known courage. You've always acted when it mattered. That's why I came to you? Not for your knowledge of business or strategy, but because you can make choices under pressure. Choices that count. And tonight, we need you to make one of those choices. Mark felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Something inside him stirred, the same instinct that had guided his hands when he saved Ethan that night so many years ago. He realized that despite the sweat, exhaustion, and years of hardship, he could act when it mattered most. The two men in dark suits from earlier were now positioned near the diner's entrance. Ethan's security team had arrived silently, blending with the shadows. Their presence was reassuring, but the tension remained sharp, unrelenting, as if the night itself held its breath. Ethan leaned closer to Mark, lowering his voice even further. Listen carefully. I'm going to explain everything. There's a safe place nearby, a vehicle ready to take us out if needed, but first we need to anticipate their moves. They won't wait for us to react. They'll strike fast. Mark's heart pounded. Safe place? Strike? The words felt like pieces of a puzzle he didn't fully understand, but he nodded. Hours seemed to pass in a blur as Ethan and Mark strategized. Maps were spread across the small office table, diagrams marked with potential escape routes and entry points. Ethan explained the nature of the threat, a rival corporation seeking to dismantle his company, motivated by greed, jealousy, and a long-standing vendetta. Mark tried to absorb every detail, every instruction, every subtle nuance of the plan. It was overwhelming, and yet, as he listened, he began to notice something remarkable about himself. His mind, shaped by years of problem-solving and life-or-death moments for Lily, adapted quickly. He began to think ahead, anticipate reactions, and even offer suggestions. Ethan noticed the shift and allowed a small, approving smile. I knew you'd be capable of more than you realized, he said. You've always had it in you. Courage isn't about fearlessness, it's about acting despite fear. Mark swallowed, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving, he was alive. Yet, as they prepared to move, the faint hum of the black SUV outside grew louder. A shadow passed across the windows again. Mark's stomach twisted. The danger wasn't coming, they were already here. Ethan moved with calm precision, signaling to Mark to stay low. Stay behind me, we'll go through the back exit. Watch every movement, remember every detail. Mark's hands shook slightly as he followed. His mind raced with questions, fears, and memories. He thought of Lily, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the chaos unfolding. And he thought of the night he had saved Ethan, how one simple act had changed both of their lives. Now, it seemed, that act was guiding them again. The back door creaked as they opened it, stepping into the cool, damp night. Rain soaked them instantly, but they moved quickly, shadows among shadows. Ethan's team flanked them, vigilant, every sense sharpened to a razor's edge. Mark could barely see beyond the neon reflections on the wet asphalt, but he trusted Ethan's guidance implicitly. He felt a surge of adrenaline, part fear. We're going to a secure location. There, we can assess the threat and plan our next move. But Mark, I need you to be ready for anything. Things might get intense, and I need you to protect not just yourself, but Lily too. Mark nodded, gripping the edge of the seat. His thoughts flashed to his daughter, to every sacrifice he had made, to every moment of doubt he had endured. Courage was acting for the ones you loved, even when the world seemed insurmountable. The SUV roared to life, tires slicing through puddles, water spraying in shimmering arcs. The city blurred around them as they sped through rain-slicked streets, tension coiling tighter with every turn. Mark's pulse raced, but amidst the fear there was clarity. He wasn't just Mark Reynolds, the single father scraping by. He was part of something larger now, part of a story that demanded courage, resilience, and trust. Hours later, they reached the secure location, a warehouse tucked away on the outskirts of the city, fortified and silent. Ethan's team moved with practiced precision, securing entrances, monitoring surveillance, and ensuring no detail was overlooked. Mark, exhausted but alert, followed instructions, learning quickly, adapting instinctively. Ethan pulled him aside. "Mark, I know this is a lot, but tonight you're proving something vital not just to me, but to yourself. You've always been capable of more than you realized, and now you're showing it." Mark's chest tightened. He felt a swell of pride, humility, and disbelief all at once. The boy he had saved, now a man whose life had been shaped by his actions, was acknowledging him not as a stranger, not as a hero, but as a partner in this critical moment. But just as they began to settle, a faint noise from the shadows caught Ethan's attention. The intruders were closer than anticipated. The rivals' team had tracked them, closing in silently like predators circling their prey. Mark's stomach churned. Fear gnawed at him, but he steadied himself, remembering every lesson life had taught him, every moment of vigilance, every act of courage. He was ready. Ethan moved with quiet urgency, briefing Mark and the team on defensive positions, contingency plans, and escape routes. Each instruction, each calculated movement, carried the weight of life or death. Mark felt his heart race, but he moved with purpose, acting without hesitation. And then the moment came. A shadow shifted at the edge of the warehouse, and a figure appeared, stealthy, deliberate, threatening. The night erupted into chaos. Mark ducked instinctively, leading a small group of civilians, including Lily, toward safety. Ethan confronted the intruders with calculated precision, every move a blend of strategy and raw courage. Mark felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in years. The exhilaration of acting decisively, of protecting those he loved, of being part of something bigger than himself. Hours later, the danger subsided. The intruders had been repelled, the immediate threat neutralized. The warehouse was quiet again, the night calm except for the persistent rain outside. Mark's body ached, his clothes soaked, his hands trembling, but he was alive. Lily was safe. Ethan was unharmed. Ethan turned to Mark, eyes steady and intense. "You've proven yourself tonight, Mark, not just to me, but to yourself. Courage isn't about fearlessness, it's about acting in spite of fear, and tonight, you acted brilliantly." Mark exhaled, a mixture of relief, exhaustion, and pride washing over him. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen, truly valued, truly alive. The rain outside had softened to a gentle drizzle, the neon city lights reflecting softly on the wet pavement. Mark realized that life, in all its chaos, hardship, and unpredictability, had a way of testing people, of revealing strength, courage, and resilience in the moments that mattered most. Ethan placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. "You saved me once. Tonight you saved more than me. You saved hope, and in doing so, you've changed the course of all our lives." Mark looked at Ethan, understanding dawning. This was more than a reunion. It was redemption, a second chance, a bridge between past and present forged through courage, love, and trust. And as he looked at Lily, safe and smiling despite the night's terror, he understood something profound. Some acts of bravery, some sacrifices, some kindnesses, echo through a lifetime, shaping destinies in ways that cannot be measured. Even as the storm outside calmed, a new tension lingered. The threat may have been delayed, but it was far from gone. And Mark realized that true courage would be tested again, and this time, the stakes were higher than ever before. The night of reunion had brought courage, danger, and hope. But the final test would demand everything they had and more. The rain had finally stopped. Outside, the city lay drenched and glistening under the glow of streetlights, reflections pooling on the asphalt like liquid gold. The storm had passed, but the tension inside the warehouse remained, thick as fog. Mark Reynolds and Ethan Carter stood side by side, alert, eyes scanning the shadows. Lily, bundled in a warm jacket, clung close to her father, unaware of the full scope of the night's dangers, but instinctively feeling the gravity of the moment. Mark's mind was still reeling. In the past 24 hours, he had gone from scraping by in a small diner to facing life-threatening danger alongside a billionaire he had once saved as a child. And yet, as exhaustion pressed on his shoulders, a fierce determination burned within him. For Lily, for himself, and for Ethan, the boy he had saved, now the man whose life had intertwined with his own, he would face anything. Ethan stepped forward, motioning toward a bank of monitors in the corner. "Mark," Ethan said, his voice calm but firm, "tonight isn't over. They're testing us. If we act carelessly, people could get hurt. You need to be ready for anything." Mark nodded, swallowing the knot in his throat. He realized something crucial. Survival wasn't just instinct, it was awareness, courage, and choice. And tonight, every choice mattered. They moved strategically through the warehouse, checking every exit, reinforcing barricades, and planning contingency routes. Mark's hands shook slightly, but he followed instructions with precision. Years of juggling responsibilities, solving problems under pressure, and protecting Lily had honed instincts that now proved invaluable. Ethan's gaze flicked to him. "You've adapted quickly." "I knew you would. Courage isn't learned, it's revealed in the moment. And tonight, you're revealing it." Mark swallowed hard, feeling both pride and apprehension. He had never imagined this level of responsibility, this degree of danger. Yet, alongside fear, a strange exhilaration coursed through him. He was no longer just surviving. He was acting, making a difference, influencing outcomes. And for the first time in years, he felt alive. Hours passed. The night seemed endless. The quiet tension was occasionally punctuated by distant sounds, a car door slamming, footsteps on wet pavement, faint voices carried by the wind. Each sound made Mark's pulse quicken, but he remained steady, focusing on the task at hand. Then, a faint alert on one of the monitors drew Ethan's attention. Shadows were converging on a nearby intersection, moving with deliberate intent. "They're here," he said, eyes narrowing. "And they're faster than we anticipated." Mark felt his stomach twist. He looked at Lily, whose eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and trust. Her safety had become his singular focus. "I'll draw attention. You and Lily move through the service tunnels. Stick to the plan, trust your instincts, and Mark, trust yourself." Mark's chest tightened. The thought of leaving Ethan to face danger alone was terrifying, but he nodded. "I can do this." "I'll protect her." The warehouse doors opened with a soft hiss, and the night swallowed them as they slipped into the shadows. Rainwater pooled in the tunnels, soaking their shoes, but Mark pressed forward, holding Lily close, whispering reassurances to calm her. "We're going to be okay, Lily. Just stay close, trust me." Lily clung to him, her small hands gripping his arm. She had seen her father tired, frustrated, sometimes overwhelmed, but tonight, she saw him courageous, decisive, unyielding. For her, the realization that her father was capable of so much strength and bravery planted a seed of admiration and love that would last a lifetime. Meanwhile, above ground, Ethan moved with calculated precision, drawing the intruder's attention. His years of experience, intelligence, and sheer presence made him nearly untouchable, but the danger was real. Every step, every movement was a calculated risk. And yet, beneath the tension, Ethan's thoughts lingered on the moment 20 years ago. When a stranger, now this man, Mark, had saved his life. That act of selflessness had set the chain of events that led him here. Tonight, he was determined to honor that debt. The tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, echoing with the faint drip of water and the distant hum of the city. Mark led Lily carefully, navigating twists and turns with a precision that belied his fatigue. He felt the weight of responsibility in every step. One misstep could mean danger, one hesitation could cost them everything. Finally, they reached a hidden exit near a quiet street. The black SUV waited, engine humming softly, a beacon of safety in the dark night. Mark helped Lily climb in, then took his place beside her. As they sped away, the rain-slicked streets rushing past, he allowed himself a moment to breathe. But even in this brief respite, his mind remained alert. Danger was never far behind. And as the SUV turned a corner, headlights illuminated figures in the distant shadowy silhouettes moving with relentless purpose. The rival corporation was still hunting them, still determined to disrupt Ethan's life and by extension, Mark's. Ethan arrived moments later, merging seamlessly with them. He exhaled sharply, tension still radiating from his body, but there was a spark of triumph in his eyes. "But we've survived the first test. And Mark, you were remarkable." "I couldn't have done this without you." Mark swallowed, feeling a surge of pride and disbelief. He had never imagined this life, this responsibility, this intensity. And yet, in facing it, he had discovered something profound: courage, resilience, and the power of connection. One act of selflessness, decades ago, had shaped both their lives, and now, it had brought them together to confront challenges neither could face alone. Hours later, in the safety of Ethan's private estate, the rain had ceased entirely. The city glistened under the early morning light, and the world seemed momentarily still, as if holding its breath. Ethan, Mark, and Lily gathered in a spacious living room, warm light casting soft shadows across the walls. Ethan turned to Mark, eyes reflecting both gratitude and awe. "Mark, I've spent years trying to find the right way to repay you. Tonight, you showed me that life isn't just about wealth or power. It's about courage, loyalty, and sacrifice. You embody all of that. And now, I want to offer something tangible, a chance for you and Lily to have a life free from struggle." Mark's voice trembled as he replied, I don't know what to say. I never did anything for reward, I just did what was right. But thank you. I can't even begin to imagine what this means." Ethan smiled, placing a hand on Mark's shoulder. "It means everything. You saved my life, my future, and tonight, you saved hope. And I intend to make sure that the life you've worked so hard for is protected, nurtured, and celebrated." Lily, who had been quietly observing, looked up at her father, eyes wide. "Dad!" "You're amazing," she whispered. Mark felt a lump rise in his throat. Her words, simple yet profound, captured the depth of the night's events: courage, love, and sacrifice. For Mark, the realization was overwhelming. A lifetime of struggle, worry, and quiet perseverance had led to this moment, a reunion, a revelation, and a promise of a brighter future. And yet, he understood that true courage wasn't measured by wealth, recognition, or safety. It was measured by the choices one made when stakes were highest, when fear threatened to paralyze, and when love demanded action. As the first rays of dawn broke over the city, Mark, Ethan, and Lily stood together, a small family forged by fate, courage, and gratitude. The storm had passed, both literally and metaphorically, leaving behind a sense of renewal, possibility, and connection. Ethan turned to Mark one last time, voice soft but firm. "You changed my life, Mark, and now, I hope I've shown you that your life can change too. This is just the beginning." Mark nodded, heart full, tears finally slipping free. "Thank you for everything. I can't believe this is real." Ethan smiled, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "It's real, and it's yours too. You've earned it through courage, sacrifice, and love. Remember that." Mark looked at Lily, her small hand gripping his, and felt a profound sense of peace. For the first time in years, he knew that the struggles, the fears, and the sacrifices had led to something beautiful: a life renewed, a family stronger than ever, and a bond that would endure beyond time, distance, and adversity. And as the sun rose, painting the city in golden light, Mark realized that sometimes the smallest acts an instinctive choice, a moment of courage could echo through decades, changing destinies, saving lives, and forging connections that no force could break. Final emotional payoff? Mark had survived the night, confronted danger, and discovered a new sense of purpose. Ethan had honored the life he had been given, and Lily had witnessed the strength of love and courage. Their lives were forever changed, intertwined in ways that transcended wealth, power, and circumstance, a testament to the enduring power of human kindness and bravery. Some acts of courage don't just save lives, they reshape them. And Mark Reynolds would carry this lesson and the bond it created for the rest of his life.